So we're going to remove the passenger front tire, 19mm socket, take the hubcap off. And now we can remove the lug nuts, 19mm. Okay, now we need to take this cover off. You have one bolt down here, and then you have 1, 2, 3 plastic body clips. This is a 7mm socket. And then using a pair of body clip tools or needle nose, I'm going to pull these out. Now we can take this cover and get it right out of the way. I'm just going to sit it right down there. And there's the Harmonic balancer. Okay, so to take the tensioner off that cert belt, right about this area, you're going to have to manipulate your 3/8 ratchet wrench in there and just get it to seat. I just took a little pry bar and I just tweaked the engine a little bit with the rubber mounts, let it work its way in that way. So now the ratchet's in there, put tension on that, and I can take the belt off the Harmonic balancer. Release it. I'm going to leave my ratchet up there because I'm going to need it. Just going to put the belt like that, and we'll take that center nut off. All right, 21mm socket is for that center bolt, but prior to doing that, see the threaded holes here for the puller? Can't really get to that one, so I'm going to put a wrench on this and I'm going to twist it so that I can get to all 3 holes for my puller. So 21mm socket, I'm going to just crank it. There we go. So now the pulley will line right up. Now with an electric 1/2-inch drive or an air gun, you want to spin that nut out quickly. Like that. I'm going to pre-spray the threaded holes right here, so that way hopefully the kit will thread itself in. So now I'm going to put my pulley in there. I've got the seated end on so that it won't damage the threads. Line those spots right up. And like I said, the pitch of this bolt is 8 by 125. That's metric. And I'm just going to put 3 bolts in. You might have to clean those threads up with a chaser before you try to bolt these in. That's why I sprayed them. I'm going to tighten those up. The key is to try to snug these bolts up to all be the same length on the puller. You don't want them one longer than the other. You want this puller to bottom out. So if you have to hold it, then do so. Let's see if it's pretty centered right there. Let's turn this in. 19mm or 3/4 socket or a wrench. You should never use an air gun on a puller. So we're going to do this by hand and back this right off. You can see the harmonic balancer coming off. There we go. So now we're going to loosen these bolts up, get this out of the way, and should be able to pull that right out. And now we can just grab that harmonic balancer and pull it right off. So now we're going to replace the harmonic balancer. And you have a keyway. You can see the keyway here. And because you have a new harmonic balancer that you'll be installing, you don't need to examine the shank on it. It should be in good shape. Replace the seal if needed. I recommend it because at this point you've taken it out and you're putting a new harmonic balancer in, and that rubber seal can be worn to the graph of the old one. So it would be smart to do it right now, and you should be all set. Just get the seal, pop it in. But we're going to put the harmonic balancer back. I'm going to line that keyway up and wait for it to drop down in. So once you line that keyway up, it slides right in, and it's already bottomed out. We don't have to pry it in. So we're going to get the crank bolt. Now the manufacturer recommends replacing it whenever removing it because the threads actually can be stretched, but we're going to reuse the old one. All right, so now we're going to take the old crank bolt because we don't have a new one, even though they recommend it, and I'm going to dip it in fresh oil, and I'm going to thread it. And the reason we do that is so that that crank in there is probably a hollow crank. We don't want it to split or crack. That's why we don't use a thread locker either, because we want this to come out easily. The torque on it is only 74 foot-pounds, so I'm just going to bottom it out by hand. And now I can get my torque wrench. So I actually have a crank wrench that holds cranks and cams from moving because it's only 74 foot-pounds. So I'm going to step aside here, see if I can. You just have to hold that harmonic balancer from spinning, or the crank. Okay, so now we're going to pull the tensioner up on that cert belt and slide it back on. Make sure it goes around the AC. And up over the alternator. Now we're around everything. Pull the tensioner this way. Guide the belt around. There you go. Now we can take the 3/8 drive ratchet off. I'm just going to put, like I did before, a little tension on the block so I can get this out of here. Now we can put the inner fender skirt back up in here, mud shield. Got the push pins for down here. One up here. Try to help. There we go. And we're going to put the center of the push pins in. Last one, and now we can put the wheel on. And don't forget, this has a hubcap. Just little 4 lug nuts. 19mm socket. I'm going to just snug them up in a star pattern. Or crisscross. Wheel torque is 100 foot-pounds. So the hubcap has a cutout for the actual valve stem. It sits in there like that. And these covers are what screw onto the lug nut. So we'll line up the valve stem. Covers will go right on. And that's pretty common for it to come off. These only have to be tightened hand tight.